Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this conference. It's a very inspiring experience for me. And I will tell a little bit about perspective in Poland, so we can compare the situation in Poland and Hungary as well. I will talk a little bit about digital best practices, aggregation, dissemination, and reuse, with most emphasis on digital best practice. First of all, well, this is the place I work and live, Gdańsk. This is the capital city, Warsaw, where all the money is, so it's a very important place for us all. There are 4 puzzles in my presentation. This is the museum I work in. This is the National Institute for Museums and Public Collection. This is the regional group cooperating, six museums cooperating in it, in my region. And this is the user who tries to fit to the puzzle. It not always happens. First of all, the national perspective, the National Institute for Museums and Public Collection. It was established only in 2011. Before that, all the museums were very independent, not like libraries or archives, which have an umbrella organization which say we should go this way or we should not go this way. In museums, everybody done their own way and didn't bother about anybody else. So they could cooperate, but usually did not, at least at the national level. Well, what the short name of this organization is NIMOZ, from the first letters in Polish. This is the Competency Center for Digitization in Museums, and this is most important from our point and our topic today. The institute employs about 30 people. Only 4 of them are working with digitization. So the first thing they started to do is to create a network of experts in Poland and specialists in Poland. And today there are about 30 people cooperating permanently with NIMOZ. Usually they are employed in other museums and institutions. Other things NIMOZ does for us is digital analytics and advocacy. So they create documents, they meet with policy makers, they go to the parliament and advocate for new solutions, better solutions for museums. They prepare publication by expert groups. Well, the problem with the publication is that they are made by experts, mostly 40 experts. So normal employees from museum don't understand the language of these publications. Now there's a tendency to write more simple, popular text so more people can understand it. They also provide training for museum staff, because this actually, well, I'm quite involved in this part of NIMOZ work, and this is a crucial thing for the future, because we actually don't have any education, formal education for specialists in the field of digitization in museum. So if you want to be a specialist, you have to train yourself mostly, and it's quite difficult to find more people who are interested. So this is one of the crucial things we have to cope with. They also do translation and localization of standards, because as a national institution they can cooperate with other national institutions, like in the United States or in the United Kingdom, because they can represent the whole sector, so it's very convenient for museums. They also can be project leaders, and they also, as I said, represent museums abroad. So if anybody invites representatives of Polish museum sector, usually NIMOZ is involved in picking the group who will go. This is the web page of NIMOZ actually showing the publication. Well, the web page is not the best. They admit themselves, but they are looking for money to change it. Let's call it mistakes of childhood. This is an example example of a publication made by one of the best photographers in Poland who works with transparent materials and with scanning. This document shows the impact of direction of scanning on the outcome of scanning, as well as the material on which you are scanning. Is it dark, is it light? So a lot of analysis were made already in our sector because we try to create images as best as possible without involving any Photoshop in the process, which sometimes some people think is strange because it's easy always to use Photoshop. But of course we try to document the reality, not to change the reality. Few things NIMOS is doing currently. They're preparing the translation and localization of Spectrum for this is the UK collection management standard. Actually, I think it's the most popular museum standard in the world currently. Has a quite large society of users who contribute to it. Then they also work on the translation of Getty vocabularies. We were talking here today about namespaces, so we also think about this, let's say, challenges, not problems. Also Iconoclast, which is classification system design for art and iconography. And other stuff are publication. Currently, NIMOS works about on manuals for museums, a simple manual showing how to run a process of photography 2D and scanning 2D for digitization. Well, the biggest effort made by NIMOS was project eMusea, electronic museum. So the idea was to join as many museums as possible and do an EU project. Could be this is supposed to be a sector pilot project. 12 national museums, 3 years of preparation, 8 working groups, a lot of time was spent. This is the map showing location of groups working together. So whole nation spread. There were a lot of analysis made. This is, for example, analysis of users showing gender, showing activities and so on. So they were divided into 5 groups. For example, one of the groups, these are the internet users who might be interested in our portal, which we wanted to create. These were the followers, this was the active group, this was indecisive group, and of course each group have its characteristics, and we were trying to find the best ways to get to them with our product. The idea was to digitize more than 43,000 objects, and all of them were supposed to be aggregated to Europeana by the national aggregators. We wanted to do more than 1,200 person per day trainings, create one large central digital repository, one collections management system for all 12 museums, one general online portal with all the images and metadata about the digitized objects, and we wanted to have 25 views, downloads, average number of them per object per year. And in the end, we also wanted to create a knowledge online service about digitization to have an impact on the way specialists gather information about digitalization. But unfortunately, this project was rejected. So it was very frustrated because the reason why we were rejected was that we didn't measure tax for education purposes properly. Someone decided that is some kind of public support, and well, that was the difference in interpretation. Our lawyers said it's okay. The one who were deciding about who gets the money had other opinion, and in the end, the project was rejected. But still, we have a lot of materials prepared during this more than 10 analyses of users, of interfaces, of web pages, portals in Europe and in the world, and so on. So all this knowledge is in the sector, so you can use it for, it's open, you can use it for different projects. And for example, this photo still won't be in Porto. This actually is the city I live in. It's just 1 year after the end of the World War II, and that's how Gdańsk looked like. And this allows me to move to the more regional aspect of digitization. And this is something I think quite unique in Poland. This is a group of 6 museums cooperating on a basis of agreement. So this group has no legal personality. All museums are partners, have equal rights. The idea is that we meet and show, for example, these are the web pages of the museums. I decided not to show you the names of the museums, but only to show you the web pages. This shows the difference in the way that each of them works. This is the youngest museum in Poland. This is the Museum of World War II, still under construction. I currently work in this museum. So these are the collection in the museum was quite easy to count until we joined with Archaeological Museum, because Archaeological Museum has hundreds of thousands of objects, and before that we had like around 40,000 of objects in each museum. So we were not the biggest museums in Poland. The biggest ones have around 1 million objects. So we focus on exchange of experience, development of thesauruses, controlled vocabulary, development of good practices, advocacy for the region, and synergy. We believe, and this is our experience, that if we join our efforts, we usually get a better result. So this group works this way, and it did work, and we hope it still will work. The important thing is this group was established before NIMOS, so some of members of the group are actually now working in NIMOS because they were the best specialists in the country, and they moved to Warsaw to work there. This is one of our, I don't want to use the name product, but we created this thesauri. It took us 3 years. It was half voluntary work, but it was a great experience. This is the material thesaurus based on materials from 3 museums from the group. There are 638 terms with more than 140 relations, with more than 280 scope nodes. In the end, we implemented it into Tematris, a vocabulary server. It's an open source, very nice server, quite simple, and it works very nice for us. This is the map of this thesauri. Here are the main 3 groups: organic, inorganic, and post-products, like they were in some way managed. I won't go to the details because we can have to spend here like 2 hours, but that's the result of this work. The Digimus works currently on 4 topics. We try to create auto-maker thesaurus, again for our museums, so we work on the data gathered from our systems. We are trying to create business process notation, so a graphic representation for a business process for digitization, so we can show every role in the process. We can show who is responsible for what, because we see digitization as a process of production, because you do a cycle of production, finish digitization, and start it with new objects. So it's very standardized. Next thing which we are working on is digital photography in digitization of museum objects. 8 photographers from our museums are collaborating to create a short document showing good practices we use in our work. And the last thing we are thinking about for near future is the digitization conference. We are thinking about 2017, but I think it will be more probably 2018. And now we go to the institutional perspective, so place where I work now. It was established in 1970. I started to work in this museum in December 2015. First, I was responsible for making to make a report about the status of digitization and IT in the museum, and it was in quite poor condition. So we decided that we start with digital strategy for the museum, and we also, this is the document, we also translated it into English, so it will be disseminated in the near future. And we also decided to create a Kapper standard. Kapper is a variation of a pirate in Polish, but with the entitled by the king to be a pirate. So this standard is supposed to be very important for naming image files, showing if this is a documentation file or is it an archive file or is it a file for publication. That means you can alter details in this image and it's not for documentation, it's only for showing some vision of it. There are also images made from exhibition, for example, which are not typical documentation of an object, but are very important in life cycle of the object. And we also pass this to the NIMOS, and they will work on it and they will publish it as a kind of good practice in sector in Poland. For digital strategy, we have 3 objectives in the following 3 years. We want to create high-quality digital resources. We want to be among leading museums in the field of digitization in Poland. And we want to significantly increase the recognition of the museum in our region and in Poland. So I hope we will be able to reach these objectives. And the effects should be resources shared online, at least 2,000, but I think we will double this number. Developed infrastructure. We already created a digital studio for photography. Also, we have to focus very strongly on gathering skills and competencies, because we need staff who is responsible and knows what the staff is doing, not like doing something without knowing why. And we want to have an efficient and quality of produced resources, so we need a good workflow, and we have to monitor it, evaluate, and alter if there is a need to. We also created a code of ethics. I won't get into details, but I think it's very important to work ethically. And we already have first results. We created the digitization studio and got extra funds for the digitization project. So we are recognized nationally and recognized locally. There was some information mostly in the internet about us digitizing and publishing stuff in the end of the year. This is our photo studio. I made these photos with my mobile phone, so they are not best quality. I just wanted to show you how it looks. It's not very big, it's only about 6 meters on 3.5 meters. So you actually, the largest object you can digitize in this space is about 1.5 meters. But it's something to start with. We built this room, it's not attached to any wall, it's just standing in a corridor, and it cost us about 12,000 euros. And the equipment for the studio cost us about 30,000 euros, including computer stations for post-production. And we got the money from our organizer. This is Municipality of Gdańsk. We also got some funds from the Ministry of Culture, around 12,000 euros, and this will allow us to digitize 220 amber objects, because we have the largest collection of amber in Poland. And also more than 1,000 of photographies is actually pre-war photo from Museum of Merchant Family House in Gdańsk, Uchaniec. So we will publish all the images in the end of the year, but we didn't get enough money, so at the beginning we publish it on some open source web page. I hope next year we will create a good web page, web service for users. And now for user perspective and experience, this is the harsh part. And there are 3 questions which user can ask in the beginning of his query on the internet. First of all, where should I start my search? Second, how random are my results? And in the end, when I get the results, is that really all? Because if I change a bit my question, I get completely different results. And I'm never sure if I got everything. So this is very frustrating. And the needs and expectation of user is that the user needs a tool for effective search through collections. All collections, like Europeana is a good example, but the problem is not many people know Europeana. I need good quality, so why museums give poor quality photos? Why are they watermarking them? What's the use of image with watermarking? What should I do with this kind of image? I cannot use it for anything. I also need a filtering tool. I don't need to know everything at once. I would like to be able to scale the information I'm getting from the internet. And of course, this is actually a real thing which I heard during my studies, that one of professors told students to read some book, and they went to the rector of the university and said that the professor gives them books which do not exist. And the rector said, how did you check? And they said, well, we checked in the internet. So if it's not in the internet, it doesn't exist. And in the end, well, the opinion of user is that putting things online, digitizing, is not a rocket science. So why does it take us so long to do it? Because they wanted to have it in this life, not in the next life. And of course, all of this makes people frustrated, and it makes us in a bad position because we all try to do it, but there is a lot of things which stop us from doing that. And now a little more about this topic. First, aggregation. We wanted to aggregate in digital repository through eMuseum, but this project didn't work out. So actually on each step we now can use Europeana national aggregators because we don't have any national service for aggregating information about collections. For user, well, they can use some kind of NGOs, private and commercial. Actually there is no service where I can put my own private collection which I gather, for example, for 20 years. So the private collectors are outside the brackets of collecting. And about dissemination, this map shows how many visitors come to museums per 10,000 population, and the darkest colors are the most visited. And actually, thank you, this is, I'm over time already. This is the voivodeship, the regions where most people come to museums, and they are also most developed in digitization area. And collections. In this region there are more than 4 million objects in 133 museums with branches. Here more than 3 million, here something around 600, and the white ones are less than 500,000. So again, this part, well, Silesia comes to the game this time. And we have 41 online services showing collections, mostly in Central Park and in Małopolska, Krakow. These are actually the best funded and most well-organized museum in Poland. And dissemination, again, what's the problems? Legal issues, insufficient funds, poor management, poor awareness, and lack of skills. And then the public user gets information that there is some kind of problem, And of course, the question arises, where are my taxes? I pay so much, why don't I get nothing in return? Well, mostly 500 to 10,000 objects online, only few showing more than 50,000 objects. Generally, no linked data or open linked data, usually limited amount of metadata, and huge differences in quality. This is almost the last one, so I'm finishing. Reuse is about losing control over digital resources, and many institutions are not ready for that. NIMOS say, let's do it. Some museums like mine say, let's be reasonable. There's a motto of Gdańsk, it says, "Nec temere, nec timide," neither rashly nor timidly. So, very slowly moving forward in this situation. Digimus is looking for the best efficient solution to do it. And of course, user is asking, why are we still waiting for? Reuse, NIMOS started to publish a small leaflet to show museums what is it about actually. So it's like breaking first ice. Thank you for your attention. And if somebody will be in Gdańsk in a few weeks, we have a small exhibition in Historical Museum of Gdańsk about 1956 in Hungary. So feel invited. Thank you very much.